B'siyata D'Shmaya. We're going to be learning, Boker Tov, we're going to be learning this morning for the Refuah Shlema of Gittel Bas Chana, Shefer Refuah Shlema, and Leilui Nishmas Rav Shlomo ben Reb Naftali. So I'm going to pass these around. I titled the shir, and it really is one of my favorite pieces of Torah to learn all year long, but it's really only certain weeks that it's really that it's most applicable to learn this teaching, and you'll understand why. And we're going to be touching upon something over here that a part of this teaching some of us have learned before, but like I said before, this is a Torah you learn every single day, all the time. What's the funniest name in the Torah? What's the funniest name in the Torah? What'd you say? Hatzal Pon? What's that? What parsha is that? It's a Nevi'im, I think, right? Right. No, it's okay. In the Tanakh, it doesn't matter what it is, right? What's that? Pedatzor. My brother's parsha was Noach, and I was his teacher. It was terror. I was only 15, and he was 13. Anyway, but there's some names that are still stuck with me from the end of Parshas Noach. The end of Parshas Noach says Patrusim de Kasluchim. These are names that I remember all the time. Patrusim and Kasluchim. So we go to these far out names to think about funny names. The funniest name in the Torah is Yitzhak. Now it's not a kibbutz. It's funny, but it's also the depth behind that name is so deep and funny. Yitzhak. It's the weirdest thing. There'll be laughter. Yitzhak. There'll be laughter. What we're going to see today, from Rav Tzadok kind of Lublin, is that name, the fact that his name is Yitzhak, is the reason why most of us have not completely lost our minds yet. Now, there's always this question of in the Gemara Bichlal, there's a whole sugim about this about Yeush, when you despair over something. Yeush shalom midas, Yeush midas. When does a person despair? And if a person despairs over an object, what's the halachic status of an object that someone despaired over? It's a long sugya. It's a very deep, it's a beautiful, beautiful Torah there. But in our lives, there's so many things we despaired over. People, many times, quite often. We've despaired over relationships. We've despaired over aspects of relationships. We've had despair over Hashem. We've despaired, itiashti. We've definitely have despair over ourselves. Some people have despaired over Eretz Yisrael, big time. What can be here? What will be here? It's a matzav of Yeush. So, Rav Tzadok, this Gaon Olam that we've been learning from, is going to take us on a journey today that will put things in order for us in terms of understanding why is it that despite the fact that I have despaired so many times in my life, I'm still here. And I haven't really despaired, even though if you would ask me b'shat ma'aseh while I'm in the act of desperation, you would say 100,000,000,000% I've given up already. While I'm in the act of giving up. And yet the next morning, I didn't give up. I didn't give up on life. I didn't give up on people. I didn't give up on the Torah. I didn't give up on Hashem. I didn't give up on myself. So this is like Reb Tzadok. When I first learned this, I learned this from my Rebbe Rav Weinberger. This, what I felt, was a monumental moment in life. You know how when you learn certain teachings, and they shake you to the core, you remember where you were when you learned those teachings? I remember where I was. I remember where my headset, my mindset was on. This is mamash, a monumental teaching for a yid in today's day and age. Divrei, so one of the svarim from Reb Tzadok is Divrei Sofrim. Right? Divrei Sofrim. Ot Ted Zayin, for those that want to afterwards see it inside, or for those learning with us online. I'm just thinking about, giving up in despair. I see this name, Gittel Bas Chana, the survivor. Shem Shai Rachman Asaner. Ein li Yehudi lityayesh mishum davar. Ben bi'inyanei haguf, ben bi'inyanei hanefesh. A Jew should never despair from anything, whether it's something that has to do with a physical ailment Bein be'inyanei hanefesh. Whether it has to do with things that have to do more with the soul. Ki ein yeush klal etzel ish Yehudi. There is no such thing as despair by a Jew. V'Hashem yitbarach yachol la'azor b'chol inyan. This should be a mantra. You should read this when you wake up after Modeh by your bed. You have this line over here. En yeush klal etzel ish Yehudi v'Hashem yitbarach yachol la'azor b'chol inyan. Hashem can help in any matter. We think we believe this, but if we knew it, life would be different. Believing something versus knowing it. Now, seems that Reb Tzadok so far sounds like who? Which other Chassid? Rabbi Nachman. Full on Rabbi Nachman. Nachon? Ein yeush ba'olam klal. Bechol binyan ha'uma Yisraelis haya achar ha'yeush ha'gamur. Wait a second. When did Hashem start building the nation, the Jewish nation? Kol binyan ha'uma Yisraelit, the structure, the building of the Jewish nation, when did it begin? Achar ha'yeush ha'gamur, after total and complete despair. D'Avram v'Sarah zkenim, they're already old. We're talking not upper 40s. We're talking upper 80s and upper 90s. This began, let's stop and think for a second, like, what? Just, ma? So he says over here, the beginning of the building of the Jewish people, the Ummah Yisraelit, began after total yeush, after total despair. Shelo Allah al da'at adam la'amin zeh. No one believed that this could happen to them. Va'afilu achar haftachat hamalach. Even after the angel came, went last Shabbos, right? The angel comes and says, my shlichus is to tell you, you're going to have a son. And even after the angel promised, it's like, I know, beseder, an angel promises they're doing a shlichus, I have to believe what they're saying, but inside, do I really, really believe it? Do I really, really believe it? Now to pause for a second and think about this. How many other promises do we have from Hashem, or through shluchim ne'emanim, that we know we have to believe them because it's the word of truth. So we believe what they say, but we don't really think that it'll happen. You know the difference between the two? It's scary to think of it because there are a lot of things we believe to be true, but we don't, I believe what you say will happen. I don't think it'll ever happen. So there's a lot of tension there between believing and thinking. You realize that? No? I lost everybody? What's that? It seems like they contradict, yet we live like this all day long, yeah. Who believes Mashiach's going to come today? Who knows Mashiach's going to come today? That's the extreme. That's the extreme. What's that? Do we? Do we? On the first part, what you said? Will have any... So far, it's outside the realm of reality. Our reality.
Our ability to
perceive it. I mean, how many Jews gave up on how many believe, this is my point. How many Shomrei Torah mitzvahs Jews, mamash, believe in God, but they gave up on Mashiach, the Mashiach thingy. So subconsciously, that happens a lot. That's the Indian over there. These things happen quite often. Now, by Avram and Sarah, did they believe the Malach that he would come when he said what he would say? Did they believe the Malach?
Even another piece, it's like Rav Shlomo says, I think we believe in God so much, but do we know how much God believes in us? Like how much Hashem actually is being mashpia on my life in each moment specifically?
Nachon.
Do I actually believe that? And then at the tzara, I want to have something going on. Do I know that?
That's the difference between Noach and Avram. Noach had the first part. He believed in God. He didn't believe God believes in him. Avram Avinu's whole thing is that he believed in God, but his belief in God was just as much based on Hashem believing in him. And that's the building of the Jewish people. But we have to go through a certain process while we get to that place of God believing in me, and that's called believing in God after I've completely despaired over believing in God, or believing in promises. Sorry?
I think because emunah, the state of emunah stuff, that the state of emunah stuff that the Baal Shem said is veikut. It's an experience. It's beyond thought. So you have to jump into emunah, which is beyond your rational mind. So that's a whole different other level.
Mm-hmm. And it's not so accessible to those that aren't even aware of that. That's part of the program. Nachon. So Abraham and Sarah had to go to what place to believe that they could have a kid? Huh? This world. They had to go through despair. And then they had to go to that place of, okay, what happens after I despair? What happens after I despair? So this is why, for years when we learn this piece, I'm always wondering, so wait a second. אין ייאוש בעולם כלל, or יש ייאוש בעולם כלל, וכל העולם מתחיל אחרי ייאוש.
Which means שאין ייאוש.
Which means, in the bigger picture, שאין ייאוש in the bigger picture, right? But you have to go first through something, נכון. You have to go through a certain piece first. Again, וכל בניין, I'm דווקא emphasizing this. Did you want to say something before? אוקיי. וכל בניין האומה הישראלית היה אחר הייאוש הגמור דאברהם ושרה זקנים, שלא עלה על דעת אדם להאמין זה, ואפילו אחר הבטחת המלאך. No one believed this even after the Malach promised. ושרה הצדקת ידעה והאמינה, והשם יתברך כל יכול. You want to tell me Sarah Imenu didn't believe that God can do anything? Of course she did. She believed that Hashem can do anything. Ve'im kol zeh. And even though she believed that God can do anything, tzachaka b'kirba. She started laughing. So if she believed that God can do anything, why did she start laughing? It's a sheer on its own. Okay, and there are a lot of svarim on this, a lot of Torahs on this. No one doubts that she believed in God. But if you believe in God and you're told such a thing through a malach, why is your initial reaction to start laughing? That's another story. But in כל זה צחקה בקרבה, שהיה רחוק אצלה להאמין זה. It was so far from her to actually believe that this could happen. Why? So this is very funny. I find this to be the most hilarious piece of the year. ביודע זקנת אברהם. Because, hey, Abi is an old, Avram, if he was 40, that's okay, right? Excuse me, how old are you, right? But then he ends off here, he says, V'chen ziknata. Yeah, she was also, kind of old too. But it's so funny how in the beginning he says, no, she knew that Avram Avinu was so old, so therefore, it can't happen. Oh yeah, side, tiny footnote there, I'm 89, right?
Laugh at joy. She said, because she believed it and she was happy and she was joyful.
The pshat of the psukim is that it was more like,
Disbelief.
yeah, right. It's this belief that this reality could be a reality. Now, sometimes, like I have a friend that cracks up when told horrible news. You know anyone like that? Because they don't know they just don't know how to respond. So it's like, you don't want to be around them when you tell them anything really bad because it gets you so angry. But you forget, that's just the way they naturally, it's a nervous, they just don't know how to react any other way. Here it's something else is going on, yeah.
Crying and laughing are pretty much the same thing.
Crying and laughing are the same thing?
Yeah.
When it comes to not believing?
I think everything. I think they're just the same. Like meaning it's it's like they're both kind of like sudden responses, unexpected responses to something that's like overwhelming. So
יכול להיות. Here she doesn't cry. Here she's just right. Here she's laughing. What's that? One is socially acceptable? That's a relative term. It depends what chaver you're hanging out with. There was someone once, I'm going to say this in a way that doesn't, someone once came to when I was still living in LA, and I was giving a Thursday night class there. And sometimes I'd have guest teachers come in, and if they were traveling through from Eretz Yisrael, it would be with a schut. One of them came, but he cried the whole shir, right? He cried the whole shir, and so the next time around before he came, he wasn't sure if I was going to ask him to teach again because it was obviously a little bit uncomfortable. Huh? While he was teaching, what he was teaching caused him to cry. the whole time. And of course, for people that aren't, I guess I hung out with different crowds. It wasn't such a, it was, it wasn't the craziest thing in the world. But other chevra in there were looking like, what's up with this guy? So then he asked me for a bracha that he should stop crying when he teaches. And I said to him, listen, I know it's insane and it makes everyone feel uncomfortable, but I can never give that bracha. How could I ever give a bracha like that? Because if it's touching upon a chord of the deepest depths of your neshama, the fact that it's socially a little bit weird, mani aseh, like that's people's problem. You have to decide if you want to be a teacher or not, but no one should ever give you a bracha to stop being in touch with the deepest depths of the Torah in a way that causes you, to start crying. Laughing is different, laughing we're much more, it's true, we're much more okay. I just thought in public. No, I think in general, like people crying in public startles you much more than someone laughing. No? Just in general, not even about bad news, just bichlal. Here we don't see tears by Sarah, you may know. It's interesting. Who's the first person we see cry in the Torah? The first woman that we see cry in the Torah? We have Leah. Leah Rakot. Yeah, Leah is the first one, which is also interesting because who comes from Leah? Mashiach, Yehuda. So that line of being able to express yourself through tears is a very geula. A person that's redeemed could actually be in touch with their dma'ot. It could bring out, it can bring out the deepest depths of you. Okay. Now we're back in the third paragraph. Why did Hashem make it that this Yid named Yitzhak is born at such an old age? What was it? What caused? Why did it have to be like this? Im haya retzon, the third paragraph. Im haya retzon Hashem yitbarach lefokdam, haya pokdam mikodem. If God's will was to have them, allow them to conceive before, at an earlier age, Hashem would have done that if that was Hashem's ratzon. Why? Because we have an important klal. Delemait benes adif, velo avid nisa b'mokom she'en tzarich. That's a klal, which means it's God would rather not perform miracles. For the obvious reason that if someone's going to believe because they witnessed miracles, what does it say about that level of emunah? So Hashem would rather not perform these miracles of giving, mothers giving birth at 90, father at 100. It'd be better for Hashem not to. It doesn't want Hashem. That's not Hashem's ratzon. Delamad benes adif. To lessen from miracles happening is always better. Aval, now this you see it was in bold typing. Aval be'emet me'et Hashem hayta zot, sheyeh binyan ha'uma dafka achar hayeush hagamur. This is from Hashem. This was Hashem's ratzon, that the first Jewish boy, being born Jewish, would dafka be in a scenario and in a place where it was after total despair. This was me'et Hashem haytazot, that dafka it would be like this. That the first Jewish boy isn't, a husband, wife, they meet in their mid-20s, they date for a few months. Okay, maybe they wait a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, they can't have children, then 4th year, or even right away. Saying that's not how Hashem wanted to establish the binyan ha'umah Yisraelit. I love that term. Binyan ha'umah Yisraelit, the building of the Israelite nation. Binyan ha'umah Yisraelit. If Tzadok says it was dafka, that Hashem wanted it to be like this, after people lost total emunah and hope that what they wanted the most could happen. And then it happens. And you could see Rav Tzadok where he's taking us. Shelo he'emin shum adam, v'afilu Sarah shetipaked od. No one believed, and even Sarah didn't believe, that she'd be able to become pregnant. Ki zeh kol ha'adam Yisraeli, because this is really what every Jew is about. Le'ha'amin she'ein li'ityaesh klal. Like you said, that even after it can happen, which means that there never was Yeush in the big picture. You understand? Hashem made it in such a way that the first Jew was born to his parents after they completely gave up, subconsciously or consciously, to pave the way or to basically remove the what's the right word? To remove the excuse that could happen to anyone in the future about what God can or can't do.
I think if, I mean, I would say Yish comes when you feel like you can't do anything else about it. When you take Kochida, it's going to be 100%
Mm-hmm.
out of it. And then you really see if something is really from Hashem. Even if before that, you know it's from Hashem, you don't always feel it because the Kochida gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So only when you 100% get rid of it.
Meaning, I can't do anything about this. Right, right. That's very interesting. That's very deep. That's very deep. I never thought of it like that. Nachon. Like at that age, there's nothing that I can do. That because the anatomy I didn't create, meaning the laws of biology, I didn't create those. So Hashem created those. So I know that once I get into that zone, there's nothing I can do anymore. So therefore, yeah, but what an ashlaya that is. What an illusion. Because
That's why I think what Bina said that there really is no Yehush, is that in real true 100% emunah, that we should all get to.
Amen.
If we all believe that everything is from Hashem, so it can happen during your 20s. Because even if it's
Right.
normal to, you know
Right.
it's from Hashem.
It can happen in your 20s like it could happen in your 90s on that level. And it can't happen in your 20s like it can happen in the 90s on that level too, if that's the way you're wired. Nachon. And that's why it had to be like this. So what is Rav Tzadok saying over here? If Yitzhak was born to Avram and Sarah when they're in their 30s, I don't know if they were together in their 30s, but let's say they were. If Yitzhak was born in their 30s, then what would that mean about the establishment of the Jewish people? That we're very much bound to nature and our perception of what Hashem can do within the framework of Teva.
And our realization of it.
And our hasaga of it, nachon. But Dafka, Reb Tzadok says, you're learning the Parshiyas Lech Lecha Vayera, it's to remind you, where are you at in life with what you think you can or can't do, or what, not really you, what Hashem can or can't do. Where have you given up on already in life?
So it's a genetic, or it's a DNA that we're using Ya'ala
100%. Exactly. Absolutely. Legamre. Me'ala teva. Mamash kacha. Mamash kacha. Ki ze kol ha'adam, third line from the bottom of this third paragraph. Again, ki ze kol ha'adam ha'Yisraeli, le'amin she'ein litiesh klal le'olam. De'le'olam Hashem barach yachol ha'azor. Ha'yipaleh ma'Hashem davar. Is there something that God can't do? Ve'en lachkor b'chakilot, lama asa Hashem kacha. Now this is where he's like Reb Nachman again, where do not become a philosopher, to start to philosophize as to why God did things in a certain way. Why? Well, because you'll never, ever, ever know. You'll never, ever, ever know. And it's not for you to know. And in fact, this journey into this world of trying to understand why God did it like this, or didn't do it like this, can lead you into dark, dark places that you can't get out of. So therefore, he says, if I live in a state of Hashem can do anything, and today, right now, I mean, look at it. We're sitting right now on the third floor of a building that we're already, unfortunately, a little bit used to. What was here? What was where we're sitting right now just 2 years ago? Pebbles. What was here? Oh, we just walked in, it's here. What was here? What was this? What was here 80 years ago? No Jews. What was here 2,000 years ago? Well, a poet named King David's writing Tehillim. 2,000 years later, we're back. Ha'ipalem Hashem davar, right? Yitzhak, it's a laughter. You tell a Yid, when we're leaving, crossing by Kever Rachel into Galus, you know you're going to be back. And most of Am Yisrael will just about be on the brink, the majority is going to come back to Eretz Yisrael. What's the response? It's Yitzhak. Yitzhak is the natural response to things that seem beyond the realm of possibility. B'diuk, az yimaleh schok pinu, nachon. We're just, when Mashiach comes, what do we say? Az yimaleh schok pinu, meaning Yitzchak. That's really what it means. We'll just be laughing. Just be laughing. Because it's too far out for us to believe that it's true, even though we have to believe that it's true. But it's too far out to believe that it's true. Okay, now the bottom paragraph. V'chein ha'yeshua delatid. Regarding the future, I mean, Esti just alluded to it, but the Yeshua Latid, it's brought down in Yeshaya Navi, where it says, Mi ha'emin lishmoatenu. Who's going to believe our besora? Who's going to believe what's in store for us? V'chein amru, and now we understand, and this is so beautiful, now we understand the puzzling statement in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. What does the Gemara in Sanhedrin say? V'chein amru, ein ben David ba ad sheyityashu min ha'geula. I never understood this statement. On the Pshat, this statement is so interesting. Mashiach will come when what? When everyone gives up. Now wait a second. That's like is that an aspiration? Like, let's all give up, right? I'm waiting before we get to Shemaim. I'm talking down here in this world. Well, let's understand now based on Reb Tzadok. What does this statement in the Gemara mean? Ein ben David ba ad sheyityashu min ha'geula. That Mashiach will come when what? When we've realized that we've already been through Yehush. Ad sheyityashu, that I already gave up at a certain point, and I'm still here. That's what the Gemara means, based on Reb Tzadok. You understand? On the Pshat, we usually say, I never understood on the Pshat that statement. Ein ben David ba ad sheyityashu min ha'geula, meaning Mashiach will come when no one expects it to happen anymore. Perhaps the way Reb Tzadok is saying is that Mashiach's going to come when we'll all collectively realize that all the reasons that we had to give up and that led us to giving up apparently weren't strong enough because we're still here. And we're still after the Yehush. All of us are already after the Yehush of so many different things in this world. When we all become like Yitzhak, like the Or of Yitzhak, that's when Mashiach is going to come. Lechatchila never, it's asur. This is only b'di'evid. You understand? You can't go into it saying, I'm giving up. I'm sorry?
I'm saying each person has like personal things that happen naturally and everything goes well and smooth and low and then you have nisyonot, like about God, this nisyonot, and that's okay. Can you speed up the process and give up when they were 50 and then it would happen faster?
About them or about us?
It's like both.
Wait, what do you think?
Maybe you can work on yourself to get to a higher level and I don't know. Or maybe your son says, you have to go through this, it's going to happen when you're 19, and that's just the way it is.
We have to give the equivalent of what that would be for, we have to give an example for what that would be to someone in this room.
I feel like also the offer is this place of surrender. Like
What Zahava was saying, yeah.
Yeah, like I have to give this over because it's beyond me, and then from that place I can really ask Hashem.
So are you saying that, he's saying, can you do that at an earlier age?
After you prayed and done and whatever, each one does their own.
I think there's different, there's the prayer of like, okay, Hashem, help me do this, and there's the prayer of like, Hashem, I'm katonti, like I can't, like this is too big for me.
So there's this, I don't know how it goes with the soup, like, but they tap Hishana, right, about the Geruah. So maybe part of the Hishana part is that you give up in an earlier stage and just give
But what are you giving up? That's the question. What are you giving up? This is good what you're doing, what you're saying, mamash. Well, let's define it. What are you actively giving up at an earlier stage in life? Your what? Your what? Your calculations for sure. Your expectations. Your hope. Your hope bichlal. Wait, 1 second. Your hope. That's a your hope for what?
I'm saying everything that we've mentioned
Yeah.
is all connected to
Hope. Is it? But that's dangerous because we may be just saying it like that. Because this person is supposed to give up hope. I don't think it's.
like that. I'm never definitely lead you to a place of Yehush.
It would. It would. So I think what you're saying is, how do you do this without giving up hope? Meaning, is it hope that needs to be that which you get rid of in order to lizarez at the this whole Mashiach process?
It doesn't make sense to you.
Right? And that doesn't make nachon. So it's not that.
No, but
Well, she's just like people today. You know, people always ask me, how come you don't put the shiurim on like Spotify or Apple, right? Because the kind of Torah we're learning, I don't want anyone learning it 1.5 or 1.7 for Bemet. Huh? SoundCloud, you, as far as I know, you can't do it.
I haven't tried.
I'm not testing you, it's okay. But, so certain things you can, but I guess maybe there are certain things in life, certain ways of learning, you just, it won't go through into you if there's a zeruz of it. So I don't know. You know, I don't know the answer to your question. Huh? How could what be?
Sounds like, how can you skip that? How,
Right. How could you get, meaning, why would you skip it? Why would you skip the process of getting drilled into you?
it's all part of it.
I think you know why? Because when you see, maybe for yourself, you could say, that's fine, I'll go through it all in real time. But when you see so many people suffering, you have no right to say, no, it's okay, we could endure it. That's the dance of this world. Like when it's my own inyan, Beseder, it's SoundCloud, the Havdil, right? Just SoundCloud. When it's someone else's, you go to Spotify. You have to, your gut reaction has to be, I cannot see them in pain for one more second of this bilbul. They're mityashim to, they can't wait Hashem. En malasot. And Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest example of it. The way he converses with Hashem every time we mess up. You know, he could have stood there and be like Noach, like, I guess people need to just suffer. Like Noach's like, I guess people just need to suffer and drown. And Moshe Rabbeinu is like, I can't believe that a relationship with you, Hashem, is meant for me to look at people suffering and just matzdik et adin, and to justify the judgment. So, we're made of something else. Did you have, who had her hand up over there? Tova, yeah. It's, yeah.
In terms of the term Jewish, like especially in context with Adam and Sarah, I feel like the definition for it, for them at least, it's just like reconciling themselves with the situation. They were like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have children, and they were just okay with that. Like, they were just living their lives, and that was their reality.
We assume that, or we know that?
I'm assuming because it just seems like
Because they're tzaddikim.
they're tzaddikim and they live their lives, and
Right.
you know, there's no whatever. You don't have like you know,
Rachel.
Rachel,
Right.
you know, crying and doubting like they just
Right.
You know, as far as we know.
Right.
First they say Abraham asks about what Rav Shlomo was Eliezer, and then he marries Hagar, then he tries to pray for God, he doesn't just.
Nachon.
That creates the illusion. He's like, okay, I guess this is who I'm passing it on to. And it's like, no, it's not even.
I think that a tzaddik is able to live both simultaneously. The accepting with the wink at every given moment. Like, I'm shalem with my bag, but I know you can do everything.
But if you want to
You know?
give me more, I'm okay with that.
Bidiyuk, mamash. But just like you'd be okay with that, they really are okay with the present situation as well. Mamash, it's both.
So it is dependent on them or not.
I'm sorry, because this room is so weird, I just can't hear that.
Well, let's say that Hashem said, again, we're going to, whatever, let's say that they were supposed to have children only when they're 90, after they went through
Right.
the process.
Right.
So is the process dependent on them, or is even that also dependent on Hashem?
It's the way he says, Me'et Hashem Hazot, that the Jewish nation would start like this. That was his lines. Me'et Hashem, right? Aval be'emet, Me'et Hashem Hazot. Here it seems that it's clearly just, this was the way Hashem structured the origins of the Jewish people. That's what it seems like.
It reminds me of the 12-step program, but you have to get rock bottom first, you have to ask for help first, like it's the beginning of the process.
Right, so the difference is that in the 12 step, it's by people that hit rock bottom, but what's the definition of hitting rock bottom by someone that's not in like that program? Rock bottom is, it's not really, it's not that language. Rock bottom is coming to a place of only you. Like everything is only you, even the things within nature is only you. Coming to that complete recognition that that which I see naturally happening, that you allow, is just as much from you and in your schut, and only because you want it, like the things that are beyond nature.
That's the Yehusha.
Which is full
I think
emunah.
so, yeah.
Yeush really is emunah. Meaning,
Achar Yeush.
like
Right.
believing that every breath is just as miraculous as having a baby at 90 is
Is, nachon,
like the Yeush and emunah is like together.
almost, yeah. Nachon.
Two sides.
Nachon. It's two sides of the coin. Ve'al ken, we're going to finish this piece. Ve'al ken amar, and therefore Yeshaya Navi, it says, when he's trying to give us koyach, the Navi says, Habitu el Avram avichem. Look at your father Avraham, ve'el Sarah techol alchem, and Sarah, the one that brought you into the world. Like, look at them. We're always constantly told, like, look at them, read their stories. Remember how your story as a people started. Look at them. Look at that moment. Look at the Yeush. Look at the name Yitzhak. Now, what's weird? Who chose the name Yitzhak? So this is like the deepest thing in the world. This is the deepest thing in the world. Hashem chose the name. What does that say? It says, that basically says that this is the way Hashem wanted it to be. Right? This is the way Hashem wanted it to be. Hashem chose that name. The gam hatchalat binyanchem haya ken achar hayeush. So Reb Tzadok here ends, and until this year I was sure that it meant one thing, and now I think it means maybe something else. I always said that it means, look at them, and remember, the beginning of your building collectively, Am Yisrael, started after Yehush. But I think what he says over here is that the truth is, look at you and in your life, the Atchalat Binyanchem, your real building in this world, the real structure of you in Olam Hazeh only happened Achar Yehush as well. And again, let's define it as much as we can right now. The real you emerges, right? Emerges a structure that has a basis, that has a that has a foundation. Really only started in your own personal life, in your Dalet Amos, only after you went through this process to a certain extent. And it doesn't mean 90. It doesn't have to be compared to anything. It's just that story of when you realized the equivalency of rock bottom, but not in a necessarily like a negative, destroying my life kind of way, just in like looking at the world and realizing, Ribono Shleilam, everything I think I have is because of, that I think I have because of me is really because of you, which means that anything that I could ever have is because of you. And that's how the binyan in your own life, like if you want to look at yourself and find those points in life, when did life really begin? Rav Tzadok says, Be'emet, your life really began when you came to this shtickle of a conclusion as well. And we're always trying to just stretch out that conclusion as our like motto and our goal and what drives us and what's clear to us more than anything. So is Rav Tzadok saying over here that it should be done lechatchila? He's saying you could think that lechatchila you should go to a place of Yehush, but that won't work because you have to go through life. You have to experience life. You have to experience all the things in this world that would cause you to give up hope. You have to. There's no other way that you could really say, Hitia'ashti, so I could start my binyan, unless you go through life. It won't work any other way. So you can't lechatchila give up on hope. But you're eventually going to get there in your own way, and that's when life begins. Yeah. You can speed it up.
Well, that means that you have to decide you're living. Meaning you can decide that you're living when you're 60, you can decide that you're going to start living when you're 80, and you can decide that you're living when you're 20. Like it depends when you make a decision that I really want to be part of this game of life. And once that starts, you start the process.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to work on the moon and you have to work on things like it forces you to work
Mm-hmm.
on who you are. Some people, well, they never get that chance.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really.
Nachon. Now there is one sakana with one that I could see with this kind of Torah is that you can't. I think you were about to say that, Sarah. What did you say?
I don't think we don't daven for a place like that, right? That we're like in total despair, like it's such a challenge from Hashem. But maybe we could look at things that are not as terrible as it's still in your hands, Hashem. I'm giving it up to you.
Nachon.
Right? Because, we don't have something, and hopefully we'll never get to.
Right. Like this Nissan of this garbage truck right now, right? It's all a matter of perception.
The sun's falling.
No, it's the school's. I hear it like 10 times a day, huh? Yeah, I hear it like 10 times a day that they play Led Zeppelin off the speaker in the high school. Yeah, it's the whatever, it's the alarm over here. Baruch Hashem, I don't know that. I don't know well enough. All right, what time is it? I want to see if we could do this next piece too. 47. Let's go. A few more minutes, okay? Rav Tzadok says like this. This is going to drill home the point of again, the moment of Yeush. What's available? What becomes available to us? The moment of Yeush. Kfi hitrachkut ha'adam min hara, v'hainu mikol chamudos ha'olam hazeh, u'tshukos legarmei. In accordance to how much a person distances himself from all the bad and all the passions that are just for himself in this world, kach hu mitkarev l'Hashem yitbarach u'mesig oro yitbarach. To the same extent, you're actually getting closer. When you leave bad, you're whether you realize it or not, you're actually transported more and more towards the place that you want to be without even realizing it. Like sur meira is actually asay tov. It's not two separate things, right? Umasig oro yisbarach. You get to the light. Kmo shekasuv hashivenu ve'er panecha v'nivasheh. Bring us back, illuminate our faces, and we will be saved. B'chin lahefech. Kfi hasagasa ma'Hashem yitbarach, kach misrachek me'inyanei ha'olam hazeh. And then the more that you're asay tov, the more that you're naturally sur meira, the more that you're masig, the light of Hashem. So too, without even realizing it, you're distancing yourself from matters of this world. Kamo shekasuv anochi, like the first dibur is anochi, I'm your God. And if you focus on that, then the obvious result will be lo yelacha elokim acherim al panai. You understand? You're saying will be a beautiful thing. Like we think sometimes, okay, first I gotta get rid of that, and then I gotta start doing that. But Tzadok says, don't you realize that while you're getting rid of that, you are actually doing that, right? It's a very important psychological mind shift over here. Ki, ksha'alev panui midivrei Torah, mimela hu mukhan lekabel kol minei ta'avot. When the heart is panui, is vacant from any words of Torah, mimela, naturally, it's ready to receive all types of lusts. Like the Yitzhak sees, okay, where could I get in? Like, the vacuum, b'diuk. So when there's a vacuum, he says, ish po makom b'shvili. There's space here for me. Ki ifshar sheyeh panui legamre. A person can't be completely panui, so then what ends up happening, v'lachen hem shneim b'yachad. Then here it's a whole mishmash you have in you. Like, I'm not thinking so much about Hashem, but I know He's there, but I'm not really filling it with thoughts of Torah. So I'm like vacant to see anyone else to come inside. And then you're walking around, like many of us, and we're wondering, will the real me please stand up already? Because I know I'm a yid that believes, and I also see where I'm capable of drowning, and they could happen simultaneously. ולכן הם שניהם ביחד, ואין האחד קודם לחברו, רק ברגע כמימרה. אבל תכף תיקוף לו מדרגה האחרת. So Rav Tzadok is saying, basically, that anything can happen in a split second. The moment of the realization of that I'm both, but I realize then, but this is really who I want more, and I go more in the Tanya's world, I relate more and I cultivate more my nefesh elokis. At that moment, my nefesh bahamis is less powerful. V'chein lahefech, and so to the other way. In a second, we're going to get there. The moment I turn my heart to Hashem, techef Hashem yitbarach mashre oro sham. Now this is an important teaching. The moment I could be in the mud of all mud, and Reb Tzadok says this in a few places, I can be in the filthiest place of my life. But the moment that I just go like this, right, I'm already in the right direction. It's a classic teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Like I could be so far gone. Let's say my destination is Eretz Yisrael, Bezrat Hashem, and I thought I was on my way to Eretz Yisrael. Then someone says, "Look where you are. Look where you're heading," and you get like a little bit of your coordinates. You realize where you are. Now, what's the furthest place from Eretz Yisrael physically? Physically, no. Spiritually, maybe. Physically, no. I think
South Africa?
I think Los Angeles actually. Someone once showed me, I think LA, and it makes so much sense, Lamaj. It makes so much. I
LA stands for Balaam.
in my mind, like in mamash makes sense because you're so under these whatever. There's a lot of tires on this stuff right now. So, but so Rav Tzadok says, okay, then you realize, oh my God, I thought I was, but really, I'm in LA or wherever, right? When do I start getting to Yerushalayim? The second that I turn my head. The second I have to believe the second I turn my head towards where I was planning on going the whole time, that's already means something. When does a person despair? When does a person despair? When does a person give up? When Torahs, like we just said, mean nothing to them. Mean nothing to them. It's so cute. So sweet.
I was also in the Cheshuvim, like I traveled all the way to LA and now I have to go back. Like it's gonna take me years to, like all those calculations.
Which means that my turning towards the light means nothing. Because based on my calculations, I'll never actually get to that place. We have to call it out where it is. Yeush is the moment where I say to myself, this Torah is not true. That's Yeush. What we just learned is not true. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. Because that's the case. Most Bali Chuvas or most FFBs and people that grew up from and that checked out, they'd never ever come back. They'd never ever come back. Why? Because of Yeush. Exactly because of that. Because of despair. V'al Amar, this is what Shlomo HaMelech said, Pitchu li kechudo shel machat. What does it mean, open for me, an opening like a needle, right? The size of a needle, right? Because that's all that you really need in order to start the journey back home. But it's not just starting the journey back home. In a certain sense, you are back home once you opened up just a tiny hole in your heart for the light to take you back to Eretz Yisrael. Ve'amru kamai ubilvad sheyeh nekev mefulash me'ever le'ever. As long as it's an open hole that can, from one side to the other. R'tzono lomar sheyeh mima'amakei libo hit'orerut gamur v'la'aziv et hachet v'la'azov kol inyanei ha'olam hazeh afilu rega echad dai. Yeush says to us that tshuva can only happen when I've completely transformed. And I've completely changed, and I'm back in Eretz Yisrael. I'm back in that place, right? Rav Tzadok says, that brings Yeush faster than anything in the world. When you say that's what it means. It does not mean that. It means mamash, the moment. It could be a moment of realizing Hashem can do anything. Hashem can do anything. So Rav Tzadok is saying, you've already been there. You've already been there. You've already hitiyashtem. Now it's time to grow up. And growing up doesn't mean becoming a full-fledged Baal Tshuva. Growing up means becoming a person with a consciousness and an awareness that believing in God means that the moment that I shift my head, I'm already mamash in a process of full of light, and God's light is right there. And the more I believe that can happen, the tzadim, the steps towards the makom that I want to be, seem much more feasible, closer, and in my midst. So I give us all a bracha, and give me a bracha back, that however the process, right, of Ein Ben David Ba Ad Shit Yashum Mina Geula, however that unfolds in our lives, from today on, I give you a bracha don't think about today on. For a second, go back and realize whether you like to admit it or not, and whether you're so optimistic and love sending smiley emojis all day long, each of you have been in a place of Yeush before in life. You've all been with Sarah Imenu, and you've all had your Yitzhak moments. Realize that. And our job is to acknowledge that, to strengthen us from the next moment that could either be another moment of total Yeush, or the second after that initial total Yeush, which brings us to a world of real, full, complete emunah. Emunah that like that right now, this second, the Geula can happen. Because a second ago, I did not think the Emunah can happen at all based on my limited perception. And maybe that's what it means. En ben David ba, ad she'tiyashu min ha-geula, like when and how it can happen. And then I realized, wait a second, I actually believe that it could happen. I'm a person that's part of the Geula. That puts me into the machane. And again, when we see someone else going through pain and suffering, there should be no patience. Mitzidenu. But when it's our bag, we have to also ask for Rahmanis, but at the same time, ask Hashem, what are you really teaching me here right now? We should have enough koach to ask that question when we need to ask it the most. Shekorach everyone. Good Shabbos, good everything.